Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a crappy day. Hi, greetings. You know, I made a prediction a few years ago. I think about field theory and metaphysics and philosophy like a billion times more than other people. I made a prediction in several videos. Where they are, I have no idea. I know they're out there because I've got like 7,500 videos. They're there somewhere. I said that science would discover that super high energy light would make matter, and last year they did. That discovery was made. They used in-phase conjugation of a pair of lasers to have constructive interference, and they made matter. Fundamental matter is nothing other than the super high energy light. All elements, whether it be gold, silver, nitrogen, oxygen, are just compounds, of course, of hydrogen. I think the largest generator, we could call it a generator or manifester of energy, is a black hole. And you see these galactic jets or astrophysical jets, two names for one and the same thing, emitting trillions and trillions of tons of hydrogen, which is nothing other than super high energy light. Lower energy varieties of what we conventionally call a black hole, human beings call pulsars and quasars. They emit all the way down to the spectrum of radio emissions up to X-ray and gamma emissions, which is very high energy light. This is what Tesla meant, of course, by the secrets of the universe being energy and frequency, because all of these things are only differentiated out by frequency. And I want to give you a couple fascinating things. One is from dynamic theory of gravity, which is we don't really have the text. We have little snippets of it from Nikola Tesla. I wish we did have it. The government probably does have it, but we have snippets from it. These are Tesla quotes from called The Electrician's Lamp of Aladdin. This is from April 21st, 1908, and Man's Greatest Achievement, quote from Tesla, New York American, July 6, 1930. Another one is somebody within Walter Russell's inner circle. Walter Russell, of course, has been dead. There's all these hand-drawn diagrams. He sent me these diagrams, which are actually not, most of which are not out there in the books of Walter Russell. They're 100% Walter Russell, by the way. This is from 1953. These all say the exact same thing regarding fundamental matter, and it's really a fascinating thing. Unlike you, everybody I know that admires Tesla admires Walter Russell. I digitized Walter Russell's works, most of them. I'm a huge fan of Walter Russell. He's about 85% accurate. Of course, nothing is known except the modality of the knower. 85% accuracy is incredibly high. It's like, what's the 15% he got wrong? That's not the basis of this video. So I'd like to quote you Walter Russell and Nikola Tesla on matter. Here's from Nikola Tesla. The primary substance thrown into infinitesimal whirls of prodigious velocity becomes gross matter. The force subsiding, the motion ceases, and matter disappears, reverting to the primary substance. He means, of course, the ether. Here's the other quote from Tesla. According to an adopted theory, every ponderable atom is differentiated from a tenuous, fragile fluid. This fluid, of course, he is analogously calling it a fluid, is referenced in the ether, filling all space merely by spinning motion as a whirl of water in a calm lake. And of course, a whirl of water, as you've seen, like you pulled the drain on your sink or your bathtub, you know, we're all fascinated by that little vortex, of course, the middle of which there is nothing there. We're fascinated by a vortex, the middle of which, of course, there is nothing. And yet that nothing, and it's not nothingness because there is no such thing as nothing, which is the absence of something else. That nothing, of course, would be the absence of water or the absence of energy at the center of an atom, fundamental particle, i.e. the proton, at the center of a hydrogen atom, for example. And by the way, all scientists agree upon this fact. I don't know if you know this or not. Look it up if you don't believe me. All free neutrons spontaneously become protons after something like 17 minutes. If all free neutrons spontaneously become protons, then a neutron is nothing other than a proton modality. And all the greatest scientists of field theory, J.J. Thomson, Nikola Tesla, Charles Proteus-Steinmetz, Oliver Heaviside, Eric Dollard, the greatest minds who ever lived on field theory all said one thing in different ways. There ain't no such thing as an electron particle. They all said it. I made many videos on this fact and given many prodigious quotes on this. This means there's only one fundamental particle. Let me get back to Tesla here. By filling space merely by spinning motion, a whirl of water in a calm lake. by being set in motion, this fluid, the ether, he's just basically making an analogy of ether to a fluid. Not that ether is a fluid, okay, it's an analogy. Becomes gross matter. Its movement arrested, the primary substance reverts to its normal state. By the way, this is where Nikola Tesla ultimately derives from other quotes. And you could look this up too. Nikola Tesla said this idea of transferring matter to energy and energy to matter is poppycock. It's nonsense. In other words, that matter is holding energy itself rather than being an energy modality epiphenomena, which is what it truly is. And that is a nuance that requires some deep thinking. It's really plainly simple as per Mother Nature, but it does require some deep thinking. So it appears then possible for man to go through harnessed energy of the medium and suitable agencies for starting and stopping ether whirls to cause matter to form and disappear. Now this is a quote from 1908 from Nikola Tesla. Last year, you could look that up yourself too, in-phase conjugate high-power lasers spontaneously generated matter. I predicted this many, many years ago in videos. I said we'll discover that super high-energy light will produce fundamental matter. How many levels above that of gamma radiation? How many multiplicatives above that? 30 or 40 times? I don't know. It's way up there, but it'll produce something stable. Fundamentally what these foolish scientists have called a zero-time particle, and I was correct. So anyway, at his command, meaning man, almost without effort on his part, we'll be able to produce other worlds and vanish them and create new worlds and spring them into being. He could alter the size of the planet, control its seasons, adjust its distance from the sun, guide it on its journey, yada yada, to cause it birth and death. Matter will be man's greatest deed, which would give him mastery of physical creation, make him fulfill his ultimate destiny. So what Nikola Tesla calls the ultimate destiny was just discovered last year using, and that was crude as it gets, but at least it's a stepping stone, something I predicted years ago. Now let's move on to Walter Russell. This is from 1953. This is from one of Walter Russell's diagrams. I don't think these words ever made it into Walter Russell's book, like the Universal One. But this is a genuine text in the huge diagrams that Walter Russell drew up, and he put little notes beside everything. These are fascinating diagrams. I appreciate the person that gave these to me. By the way, I was actually threatened for releasing these diagrams by the people, the people that surround his late works. Like, don't give those out. It's like I'm giving them out for free. Yeah, I'm not going to apologize for it. This is from Walter Russell. The atom is held together solely by fast motion around a point of rest. Geez, this sounds exactly like what Nikola Tesla just said. Around a point of rest which is known as a center of gravity. This would be like what I would call a null point. The XY crossing of Cartesian inertia or rest. Well, he's just calling it gravity, the null point. You can call it the null point, non-Cartesian pure potential, true inertia. He calls it gravity, fine. Nothing else than that. There are no nuclear particles at an atom center. This is not to say a proton and a neutron is just a proton modality, doesn't exist. What he's saying is this thing that we call a particle is nothing other than a whirlwind of an ether, which is no different than what Nikola Tesla said, and it is no different than what it necessitatedly must be. We say, yeah, here's a proton, right? I've never, ever denied nuclear particles. I have, however, agreed there's no such thing as an electron particle, a supposed charge-carrying particle, which could never explain wireless power induction vis-a-vis electrons. And these so-called scientists, which are nothing other than materialists, existentialists, they think, oh, the flow of power is the movement of electrons. Like, go ahead and explain wireless power induction in a vacuum. They can't. They've never defined the term energy. They've never defined the term field. That's not my opinion. That's a cold, hard fact. So Walter Russell is saying the exact same thing Nikola Tesla said, the exact same thing I've said. I mean, not that this is a proton, but I mean, if this were a proton, we can't say that the proton doesn't exist, but what is that? When we look at a whirlwind, I mean, a vortex, a cyclone, or a little vortex, when you pull the plug on the drain, was like, well, there it is. It's beautiful. Everybody loves to stare at a vortex. But what are we staring at? We're staring at a whirlwind around nothing. I've been in the eye of a hurricane twice in my life. It's fascinating. You know, the winds are whipping around like crazy, then all of a sudden it's just like, ah, the heavens open up, the sky is blue, the air is dead still because you're in the eye of a hurricane. The best one I was in Daytona Beach, Florida. I was in the eye of a hurricane. It's beautiful. Wow. Ah. Of course, you know the other eye, the eye wall is going to hit you in a short period of time, but while I was in it, it's just absolutely fascinating. So, in fact, these are holes like the eye in a cyclone. This is from Walter Russell. In every atom of the 0, 1, 2, 3 groups, all motion is an attempt at blah, 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 blah. I got to get onto that. Anyway, this is a really important quote from Walter Russell, and this isn't his diagram. I don't think this ever made it to any book. Yeah, the atom is held together solely by fast motion around a point of rest, which is known as the center of gravity. You could say 0 point, you could say non-Cartesian plane of inertia. Actually, be the point of inertia, not the plane of inertia, but the point of inertia. Nothing else than that. There are no nuclear particles at atom centers. He's basically saying, yes, there are vortexes, which we would call protons and neutrons, at the center of an atom, but these vortexes are epiphenomena. You know, whirlwinds of ether perturbations. You know, and a vortex or a cyclone, it has a volume, you know, and of course we conceive of its energy, which of course it demonstrates energy, but it is itself not energy. In other words, you can't convert matter to energy, which is what Nikola Tesla over and over again rails against vociferously. So this gives a beautiful hyperlogical, super simple insight into the nature of nature itself, natura naturans. Everything, of course, all elements are compounds of hydrogen. All molecules are compounded elements of whatever variety, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, so on and so forth. Undeniably so. There's no such thing as an electron. Of course, an atom is nothing other than an electrostatic dynamo. That's all an atom is. The scientists, even though I have no respect for 99% of them, they are correct and say every atom is 99.9999999% empty space. It's not empty space. It's an electrostatic dynamo. They're basically saying that the field or the volume or the air inside of the balloon of an atom is nothing. Well, I mean, it's an electrostatic dynamo. The fields are churning like crazy inside each and every atom, but the massive volume of the atom, you know, there's nothing physical in it, but at the center of which we're just looking at energy vortexes. You need to understand and register it in your brain that Nikola Tesla and Walter Russell, facts, logic, and wisdom and common sense, and myself included, are telling you the same thing. At the center of these atoms and what is fundamentally matter itself, which is super high energy light, is nothing other than a vortex, or they use the word whirlwind. They use the words whirlwind. Substance, infinitesimal prodigious velocity becomes gross matter. Whirlwind, according to the adoption of theory of matter, just from Tesla, in a spinning motion, a whirl of water. Well, a whirl of water in a calm lake of vortexes, you know, an epiphenomena. The center of a whirl is nothing. But we recognize that phenomena, and that phenomena, if it's a three-dimensional whirl, of course it would be kind of like this, even though this is a ball of lead. It's like, well, look at that phenomenon. It has a certain mass. It doesn't actually have true mass, but a denotation of mass. And it has a phenomenal existential existence with a Cartesian value, but the center of which is nothing there. So these particles exist, but do they exist in an absolutist sense? No, they do not. I mean, because you know, the center of the frightening hurricanes and tornadoes that many of us have been through, there is nothing there. They're not composed of stuff. There's the whirling air. It's composed of air. The air is everywhere. So what is this epiphenomena of a whirlwind or a hurricane? What is the epiphenomena of this thing, the fundamental particle? A proton, or a proton modality that humanity calls a neutron. Well, Walter Russell, Nikola Tesla, myself, facts, logic, wisdom, and common sense, and Occam's razor tells you that these are not particles at all, and they are nothing other than ether, vortex, or they'll say whirlwinds. We can say vortex, whirlwind. Those are just two synonyms in reference to the same thing, epiphenomena, of which we have a swirling field of energy around a nothing, a null point. Or as Walter Russell says, the atom is held together slowly by fast motion around a point of rest, which is known as there are no nucleoparticles at atom centers. In fact, these are holes at atom centers. He's basically saying these are little tornadoes or little hurricanes or little vortexes at the center of an atom. And that is hyperlogical. And that also, too, gives further credence to the holographic universe. A broken clock is right twice a day. I am not one that ever agrees with the New Age movement whatsoever. But the one thing that is right, and of course this is backed up by the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Nikayas, Plato, Plotinus, Proclus, Numenius, Syrianus, Iamblichus, is that the world is a mirage of something true and real. We're fascinated by the epiphenomena, the phenomena, but the center of this there is nothing. It's the same reason why at the center of magnetism there is no magnetic flux, the center of a vector of gravitational acceleration there is no gravity. Gravity and magnetism themselves are nothing other than field demonstrables of fundamental matter. There is no magnetic flux at the center of the most powerful magnet or any magnet. It's not my opinion, that's a hardcore fact, demonstrably measurable with a Gauss meter. The center of these nuclear particles are nothing. These are phenomena, or as Walter Russell calls them, holes, or as Nikola Tesla calls them, whirlwinds, like a whirl or a vortex of water in the middle of a calm lake. Whirls. So here you have the accurate description of the fundamental particle. The electron certainly doesn't exist, which all the experts agree on. And even the fundamental particle is a demonstrable epiphenomena which is ultimately empty, the center of which there is nothing. Fascinated by the box, but the box is empty. So a fundamental particle is just like a beautiful box that's whirling and twirling. Of course, you take any object and whirl it fast enough, it becomes spherical. That's also too undeniable. Any shape, a pyramid, you whirl it fast enough, it becomes a sphere. A box, whirl it fast enough, it becomes a sphere. This is just an energy vortex. But these are holes. Just like a tornado is a hole, a hurricane, and the fundamental particle. So you have Walter Russell agreeing with Nikola Tesla, which agrees with facts, logic, common sense, and wisdom, and I wholeheartedly agree. So there is the fundamental secret of matter, as espoused by Tesla and Walter Russell and common sense and Mother Nature, the chick with the dreadlocks and hairy pits and the hemp skirt also agrees, and it certainly agrees with Occam's razor. Yeah. And it also, too, denounces the view of relativity and quantum that you could change energy into matter and matter into energy. Now, this notion that you can destruct matter and make energy, Tesla rails against that endlessly. You could go look that up yourself. There are many quotes from Tesla about that fact. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you gained some insight into this. If you want to contact me, my info is in the description below, or even a donation, which is always warmly welcome. Or you can send me an email. Tell me how much you hated the video. I hate it. I don't like it. Tell me why, though. Don't tell me why you don't like it. Give me facts, logic, and wisdom behind it. Because if you do that, you're obviously smarter than Tesla and Walter Russell. Thanks.